First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Charming deception. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood as Evie and Ryan approached the charming house at the end of the lane. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses could be heard from the backyard where Mr. and Mrs. Rogers were hosting their weekly cocktail hour. "Evie, darling, you made it!" Mrs. Rogers exclaimed, her voice carrying over the fence as she caught sight of them. Come in. We've been dying to properly welcome you to our little community." Evie smiled, her eyes sparkling with the same warmth as the setting sun. "Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. It's so lovely to be here," she replied, her voice laced with a hint of a southern drawl that she had perfected over the years. Her charm was not lost on the neighbors, especially Mr. Jenkins, the kindly old man next door who had taken a particular interest in the newcomers. "Miss Evie, your stories of Brookwood are as delightful as the peach pies I reckon they bake there." He chuckled, hanging on her every word about the fictitious accident that had supposedly uprooted her life. As they mingled among the neighbors, Evie's charm was undeniable. She laughed at the right moments. Her stories were captivating, and her mysterious aura drew people in. Ryan watched her, pride swelling in his chest. She was a natural, weaving her fabricated past into the conversation with such ease that it was impossible to doubt her. Yet, as she spoke of Brookwood, a shadow crossed her face so fleeting that no one but Ryan noticed. A silent harbinger of the storm that was brewing beneath her sunny facade. Later, as they walked back to Ryan's place, Evie's expression turned contemplative. "Ryan, I've been thinking," she began, her voice hesitant. "I gave away all my furniture before the move. I'm ready for the truck tomorrow, but..." Ryan stopped and turned to her, his decision already made. "Forget the truck. I'll help you get the rest of your things. You're moving in with me, Evie. Tonight." Evie's eyes widened in surprise, a mix of emotions flickering across her face. "Ryan, are you sure? I mean, we've only just..." "Evie," Ryan interrupted, his voice firm yet gentle. "I've never been more sure of anything. You belong here with me." A smile slowly spread across Evie's face, and she nodded, her decision made. "Okay, let's do it. Let's start this new chapter together." And so, under the cover of night, they gathered the last of Evie's belongings. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the windows, casting an ethereal light on the boxes that held her life. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine from the garden, mingling with the mustiness of old books and the faint trace of her perfume. As Ryan lifted a box, a photograph slipped out, capturing a moment of a life that Evie had left behind. A life that was as real as the stories she told. As they worked side by side, the air was thick with unspoken words and the weight of secrets between them. Yet in that moment they were just two people, embarking on a life together, unaware of the tangled web of deception that would soon envelop them both. Ryan's thoughts were a whirlwind of emotion, excitement, apprehension, doubt, and determination. He knew that inviting Evie to move in was a risk, but he was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. There was something about her that fascinated him, and he wanted to unravel the mysteries she kept hidden. He understood that her fabricated past was a shield, a way to protect herself, and he was determined to earn her trust and provide a safe haven for her true self to emerge. As they loaded the last box into Ryan's car, the moonlight illuminated their faces, casting an otherworldly light on their intertwined destinies. Little did they know that their lives would never be the same again, and then that the charming deception they had crafted would lead them down a path of secrets and revelations that would change everything. Spy games. The office was silent except for the soft tapping of keys as Ryan reviewed the latest shipment logs. His brow furrowed. Something didn't add up. The numbers were off, and his gut told him there was a leak in his company. He needed to find the mole, and fast. Evie watched from the doorway, her heart racing. She knew more than she should. Her true identity as Luca, an undercover agent, was at risk of being exposed. She had to maintain her cover as the charming girlfriend, but every moment was a dance on a razor's edge. "Ryan, is everything okay?" Evie asked, feigning ignorance. Ryan glanced up, his eyes hard as steel. "No, it's not. Someone's been feeding our info to the feds. We've got a spy among us." The tension in the room was palpable. Evie's mind raced. She had to steer him away from the truth. "A spy? That's terrible. How can you be sure?" "I've been in this game long enough to know when I'm being played," Ryan said, standing up. "And I intend to find out who it is." Evie nodded, trying to keep her composure. "I'm sure you will. You're the smartest man I know." Ryan's expression softened for a moment, looking at Evie. "I trust you, Evie. You're not like the others." Freddy sat hunched over in a chair in a dimly lit alleyway, his hands trembling as he sent the encrypted message. He had stumbled upon the truth by accident, and now he was in too deep. He had to get the information to his contact, Mr. Smith. Ryan's threat echoed in his mind. "I'll find the rat, and when I do, they'll wish they never crossed me." Freddy's heart raced with fear. As the plot thickened, Evie and Ryan's relationship became a chess game of secrets and lies. With every move, the stakes grew higher, and their world threatened to unravel. The air was charged with suspicion, and every shadow seemed to whisper of betrayal. The encrypted message was Freddy's only lifeline, his only hope of survival. He had to trust Mr. Smith would act quickly. Meanwhile, Evie, with her dual identities worn within her, found herself at a crossroads. Each lie she told Ryan spun a web she feared she could no longer escape from. As the night drew on, the game of deceit they all played edged closer to a dangerous climax, where the truth threatened to shatter the fragile facade and expose them all. Tangled webs. The sun's soft morning glow bathed the city as Lucca, disguised as Evie, navigated the bustling streets, her pulse quickening with anticipation of the risky game ahead. Seated in Ryan's sleek black car, he voiced his worry. "Are you certain about this?" Evie assured him with unwavering eyes. "It's our only option. Trust me." Within the hotel, tension permeated the air. Evie's nimble fingers crafted a delicate paper swan, which she left on the check-in desk, catching the clerk's curious gaze. The key card in hand, she ascended to her room, her facade crumbling as Lucca confronted her reflection in the mirror, Amy Holder's demise weighing heavily on her conscience. Mr. Smith's commands reverberated in her thoughts, a relentless reminder of the treacherous path she had chosen. Devon's arrival interrupted her introspection, his expression grave. "Bad news," he muttered, proffering his phone. The surveillance footage revealed Mia, stealthily maneuvering through the shadows, pursuing her agenda. Evie's thoughts raced. "We must act quickly. Mia's involvement complicates matters." Diverging paths ensued, Devon intent on intercepting Mia, while Evie readied herself for the impending assignment. A pervasive sensation of being watched nagged at her, invoking the spy games Ryan had unraveled within his company. As dusk enveloped the city, Evie, disguised beyond recognition, convened with Matt, the tension between them palpable. "You're treading a perilous path, Lucca," Matt warned, his gaze intense. "What are you truly after?" Evie, her identity as Lucca burning within, held a stare. "My resignation," she whispered. Leaving the paper swan on Matt's desk, a symbol of the intricate web she wove, Evie strode into the night. She felt the weight of her deception and the secrets she harbored, yet the thrill of the challenge remained. She was Luca Marino, determined to dismantle Mr. Smith's criminal empire regardless of the personal cost. Heist partners. Heist partners. Evie, now posing as Luca, stood in front of Devon, her eyes locked on the intricate blueprints spread out before them. They were planning their next big heist, one that would finally put an end to Mr. Smith's manipulation. All right. So we have the layout of the museum, Devon said, tracing a finger along the corridors. We need to get past the security system. I've got that covered, Evie replied, a hint of confidence in her voice. I can disable it for a few minutes. Devon nodded, impressed. And what about the physical security measures? I found a way to bypass the cables and wires, Evie said, a sly smile spreading across her face. We'll need to be quick, though. We have a small window of opportunity before the alarms go off. The two of them pored over the plans, discussing every detail, every contingency. They had worked together long enough to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. It was clear that Devon was an ally Evie had gained during her mission to take down Mr. Smith, someone she trusted with her life. As they finalized their plan, Evie turned to Devon with a serious expression. You know, this is it. This is our chance to take down Mr. Smith once and for all. The night of the heist arrived, and Evie and Devon put their plan into action. They moved swiftly and silently through the museum, avoiding detection at every turn. Evie worked her magic, disabling the security system just long enough for them to complete their objective. As they made their escape, Evie couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had pulled off the impossible. But as they emerged into the cool night air, Evie knew that their work was far from over. They had to prepare for Mr. Smith's retaliation, and they had to be ready to fight back. Broken trust. I sat on the couch, flipping through the pages of a magazine, my mind racing with theories and suspicions. It wasn't until I stumbled upon a note in blue ink on the last page that my heart began to race. This was no ordinary copy, it was an original. My eyes narrowed as I thought back to the words. I got it from George, directly from the mailbox. Something didn't add up. My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Amy, her expression grave. We need to talk, she said, taking a seat beside me. What is it? I asked, sensing something was wrong. I've been thinking, she began. Remember how we discussed the challenges we would face? I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. Well, I think I found out why, Amy continued. A friend told me about some tests, and the results were concerning. My eyes widened in concern. What do you mean? Amy's face was grim. I know. And it gets worse. I think there's more to it than we realized. My heart sank. I had suspected as much, but hearing it from Amy made it all too real. I took a deep breath, determination coursing through my veins. We need to figure this out, I said, looking at Amy. She nodded in agreement. Let's gather more information and understand the full picture. With a newfound sense of purpose, I stood up, ready to confront the challenges ahead. We'll uncover the truth, I said with resolve. Amy and I spent the rest of the evening strategizing our next moves, determined to expose any deceit. The following day, I met with Devon, who had been keeping an eye on the situation. We have a lot to discuss, I told him, eager to delve into the details of our investigation. Together we pored over the information, connecting dots and drawing conclusions. It was clear that the situation was more complex than we had initially thought, but I was ready to face whatever came our way. Unveiling Mr. Smith. Amy Holder sat across from Devon, her eyes locked on his as they discussed their plan to take down Mr. Smith. They had been gathering evidence for weeks, and it was time to put their strategy into action. I'm ready, she said finally, her voice firm. Devon smiled, a glint in his eye. Let's do this. The two of them set out to execute their plan, carefully orchestrating a series of events that would lead Mr. Smith to believe Amy had turned against him. They knew it wouldn't be easy. Mr. Smith was a master manipulator, always one step ahead of his opponents. But they were determined to outsmart him. As they worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and building a case against Mr. Smith, Devon stumbled upon something that would change the game forever. "Amy, I found it," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement. Amy's heart raced as she looked at what Devon had uncovered. They knew they had to act fast. They couldn't let Mr. Smith get wind of what they had discovered. Together, they presented their case to the authorities. With the evidence in hand, they were ready to confront Mr. Smith. The confrontation was intense, with Devon and Amy revealing the extent of their investigation. Mr. Smith's facade crumbled as the authorities arrived and he was taken into custody. The truth about his illegal activities was now public, and Amy felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had done it. She had brought justice to those affected by Mr. Smith's deceit. As she watched him being led away, she knew that this victory was not just hers, but for all who had suffered because of Mr. Smith. The chapter closes with Amy reflecting on her journey, the challenges she faced, and the strength she found within herself. Double agency online. Evie Porter, known to Ryan as Lucca, sat quietly in the dimly lit office, her eyes scanning the rows of filing cabinets. Tonight, she felt a twinge of guilt. Ryan had been good to her, and the thought of betraying him weighed heavily on her conscience. "Find anything interesting?" Ryan's voice cut through the silence, startling Evie. She hadn't heard him enter the room. "Just looking over some shipment records," Evie replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Ryan leaned against the desk, watching her closely. "You know, I never really asked about your past. How did you end up here?" Evie hesitated, then decided to trust him with a piece of truth. "I've had to do things I'm not proud of," she confessed. "But I'm trying to make things right." Ryan nodded, understanding more than she realized. "We all have our secrets," he said softly. A flashback hit her like a wave. 4 months ago, she had adopted the alias of Evie Porter, meticulously playing the dangerous job by the book, waiting for Mr. Smith to make his move. She remembered the initial meeting with Ryan, the internal conflict of maintaining her fabricated persona while her heart grew entangled with his. The partnership with Amy and Devon, the trust and camaraderie they shared, it all flashed before her eyes. Her commitment to her mission to complete her tasks, following through with her assignments, and her willingness to sacrifice personal connections for the greater good of their mission echoed in her mind. She was torn between her loyalty to her team and the emotional connection she shared with Ryan. The weight of her past experiences, the impact of her mission on her personal life and relationships, all contributed to her internal struggle. As she stood there, she knew she had to confront the consequences of her actions. Ryan's expression softened and he reached out to take her hand. "We all have our secrets," he repeated, his voice laced with understanding. Evie felt a flutter in her chest as their hands touched, the spark of attraction still present despite the web of lies between them. The sudden commotion outside broke the spell, and they rushed to the window to see several cars pulling up to the building. "It's not Mr. Smith's men," Evie whispered, recognizing the insignia on the vehicles. "It's a rival group trying to take advantage of the power vacuum." Ryan's grip on her hand tightened as they prepared to face the intruders together. Alliances and betrayals. The backyard was silent save for the rustling of leaves, a stark contrast to the turmoil between Evie and Ryan. They faced each other, the tension thick in the air. "Ryan," Evie began, her voice steady, "there's something I need to tell you." Ryan's eyes searched hers. "I'm listening," he said, his mind racing. "I've been undercover this whole time," Evie confessed. "My real name is Lucca. I was gathering information, but not to harm you. I wanted to protect you." Ryan's expression shifted from confusion to surprise. "Undercover? Why? What are you protecting me from?" "From something far more dangerous than you realize. I care about you, Ryan, more than I should, and I know we share something special, something they can't understand." "What do you mean?" Ryan asked, his voice softening. "I can't explain everything now, but just know that my intentions are true. I had to deceive you to keep you safe. Ryan took a step closer, his curiosity and trust warring within him. I believe you, Luca. But why the deception? Why not come to me directly? Evie took a deep breath, steeling herself. Because the threat is closer than you think, and exposing them requires careful planning. I couldn't risk them finding out about us. The air between them shifted, the tension easing slightly. So what now? Ryan asked quietly. Now, Evie said with determination, we finish what we started. We expose them, together. We show the world their true nature. Ryan smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his eyes. Together, he agreed. For us. And with that, they began to plan their next move, a strategic strike that would bring down the dangerous entity that threatened their world.